Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Episode 80 of the Hunting Collective is coming at you right now. We got a lot to do and a lot to cover, and this is going to be all about upland birds, gun dogs, shotguns, real fancy type stuff, right, Phil?
I wouldn't know because I did not sit in on this episode.
Oh, you were in. You did.
I talked. Yes,
Mango.
You'll hear in a few. I talked about my dog.
Mango.
I didn't hear your interview with Benno, the other
Benno Williams.
Benno Williams.
Yeah, but we did cover Mango.
Yes.
So Mango's coming up. We also have Morgan Mason, Joe Farinato from the Meat Eater crew. We went out, did a little bluegrass hunt up in the hills of National Forest here around town. Talk about that. Talk about the mysterious but beloved Mango. You want to titillate anybody with some?
Yeah, sure. We talk about my dog, my family's dog. Her name is Mango. Ben is not a fan of the name, but we go more
name.
into that
Here, yeah. So hang around for that. And
yes,
then,
and also Joe and Morgan's pups.
Their dogs too.
Yeah,
Ferg and Pinion. And we talk about Pinion's name origin. It's pretty cool. You'll like it. And we went to Livingston, Montana, and we hung out with Ben O. Williams. And he is a legendary, in my opinion, Hungarian partridge hunter. He is a Brittany breeder, an owner, a writer, kind of the seminal writer in the upland world. He had a lot of great stories. He's been upland hunting in the Shields Valley of Montana since the early 1960s. He was literally the first person to do it. So he's got a lot of great stories at the ripe old age, I believe, of 81. But he's still out there hunting. So stick around for that. But before we get to that, we got a lot to cover here. A lot to cover. We're going to do it quick. Federal Premium Ammunition. What do we use when we're on an upland hunt? We use Federal Premium Ammo. I only missed twice, Phil, and I shot 3 times and missed twice. I feel like that's the 33%.
That would be a solid batting average if this were baseball.
That's a Hall of Fame batting average.
Sure.
Sure. Feels skeptical. We were using Federal Premium, the high velocity upland load. It's a great load. I'm using a 2 3/4 inch shell with a shot size of 7. And this is a premium branded copper plated lead shot, brass plated heads, high velocity, pretty tight, pretty consistent patterns from the folks at Federal Premium Ammunition. So go to federalpremium.com, pick up some of those upland loads. You're going to enjoy it, unless you live in California. Then you can't. So just a warning, as it says on their website. Warning for California residents. Just a quick little warning. So watch what you're doing with that. But go to federalpremium.com. And then Yeti. Yeti's got a new backpack out. I don't know if you want to call it a backpack. They do. Steve Ranella had one. I was playing around with it. It's badass. He loves it. I love it. It's called the Crossroads Backpack 23. It's your everyday durable pack. If you're going back to school or if you're going back to the woods, it doesn't really matter. It's the Yeti Crossroads backpack at Yeti.com. You can enjoy that. Go check it out. I've got one, and I love it. Steve Ranella has one, and he was singing its praises to me the other day. So go to Yeti.com and check it out. But before we get to the show, I do have one request from you. We have a new segment coming, right, Phil? A new segment coming.
Yeah, we do. It's pretty exciting.
We'll keep all the details.
Seems like you've been really on top of these new segments.
Yeah, this is a real one.
Got the
though.
Rude comments one.
Yeah, this is a real one though. Those are fake ones.
Okay,
those are ones I do because it amuses me. This is a real one though. This one, we're going to do 10 of them from between now and the end of the year. They're going to be called Not So Sharp Moments. And so what I need you guys all to do is very, very, very important. And Phil and I will be giving our bumbling, not so sharp moments in our lives. But we need you to write into thc@themeateater.com. That's thc@themeateater.com. And tell us sometimes that your disappointing performance while hunting or doing things outside. We've all had bumbling moments. I have plenty of them. Let's celebrate failure here at the Hunting Collective and work on those not so sharp moments. That's something that we're going to be doing, 10 of them. So if you write in, we'll happily feature you. We may even call you on the phone. You don't know. We don't know. We're just swinging it.
You won't know.
Yeah, you won't know.
You won't know how we got your phone number. You'll get a phone call.
You don't know Phil has powers, man.
Yeah.
Phil can do it. So not so sharp moments, send them in. They can be as long or as short as you please. I want to hear some funny, some fun, lighthearted moments outside where you messed up. I got plenty. I know that. But just every time I go hunting, there's one of these. In fact, the other day, I went to a podcast at Benno Williams' house, and I forgot the podcast kit. So let's start with that. We got all the way there, 45-minute drive.
Not so sharp.
Not so sharp.
No.
Pretty dull.
Yeah.
But we ended up making it happen. So there's plenty of those, I'm sure, out there. thc@themeateater.com. Write in. Please write in. We need you. So without further ado, episode number 80.
I guess I grew up on an older road. A pedal to the metal, always did what I was told. Until I found out that my brand new clothes came secondhand from the rich kids next door. And I grew up fast, I guess I grew up mean. There's 1,000 things inside my head I wish I ain't seen. And now I just wander through a real bad dream, or feeling like I'm coming apart at the seams. But thank you, Jack Daniels, number 7.
Hey, everybody. Episode 80 of the podcast coming at you. This is going to be 9/24 when you're listening to this, baby. And hopefully I got the episode number right, Phil, because last time I said the episode number wrong. So
if we did everything right, the listeners should have no idea.
So go back and listen to episode 78. Stop now. We'll take a quick break.
Insert the Jeopardy theme song.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't tell them what to listen for, but when you go back, listen to when I say episode 78 and see if you can tell Phil's wizard audio magic, because I said the wrong episode number and I had to go back and record. Me and Phil were in here. I was going, episode 78.
You're 78.
78.
We did a bunch of different takes. Hopefully it worked.
78. So go back and listen to see if you can pick out that I'm totally faking it.
Yeah.
Not enough White Claw in the bloodstream at that point.
Not enough.
Body was not in homeostasis.
This is, to me, just to let everybody know that all of this could be fake. Like, Phil has enough audio skills that everything I say could be manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that Joe Rogan audio voice manipulator.
Yeah.
You think, oh, that Ben O'Brien, a genius. This is probably what you've been thinking.
It's just Phil.
Lately.
It's always Phil.
Making me sound.
Yeah, Ben's actually been on vacation for 2 weeks, so every time you hear him talk, it's an app.
It's just AI.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's AI. So if you ever feel like maybe the cadence of my voice is off, that's probably because I messed up and we had to go back and fix it. So just want to let you a little behind the scenes content. We're here.
We pay Phil the big bucks.
Phil makes the medium bucks.
Yeah. That's about right.
And I get his commission
There
on
you go.
podcast downloads. So
How'd you work that deal out?
I just made it up.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I go to Phil's house and take something every week.
This is news to me,
Yeah.
but I'll
It's like the mafia.
I'll allow it.
Your doors. Oh, it's great. Get a security system. Phil.
Reparations, Phil. We got Morgan Mason in here, hey buddy,
Howdy, howdy.
and Joe Farinato.
Hey, everybody.
Joe, this is only your second ever podcast.
Yep.
How are you feeling right now? Intimidated,
pretty
nervous?
Good. No, I'm feeling good.
You did well last time. I didn't even know. You told me afterwards that was my first podcast. I was like, wow. Unbelievable.
Besides my
great.
3 minutes of fame on the Meat Eater podcast when I had to describe a Poe.
Well, then you've been on, but you weren't featured. You weren't a featured speaker.
Yeah, they just had me explain some stuff. Steve said my name wrong, and so. Yeah.
Ferrentato.
Yep.
Joe Ferrentato. Tato!
Yep.
Notice that's
That'll
your
stick.
new nickname. Tato.
Well, actually, I heard you make a cameo appearance on the Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
That happened.
You called Steve during the podcast?
I called him back.
Called him back.
Yeah, because he had called me. I missed his call. I was
You're
like,
calling him back.
I better call Steve back because it's important.
So now, the famous Joe, how many times has Morgan Mason been mentioned on the Joe Rogan podcast? Probably none.
Well, I'm just going to go cry in the corner now.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'm irrelevant.
Yep.
It's okay, Morgan.
You've been on probably the 3 best podcasts out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Right, Phil?
Yeah.
Phil laughed.
Sure.
Son of a bitch. Phil's like, Anyway, we're doing this on the heels of a wonderful blue grouse hunt. Well, I guess you want to say blue grouse. It was a grouse hunt. We would have shot any grouse at the point that we were in. A wonderful
Say
grouse
mountain
hunt.
grouse. Just say mountain grouse.
Grouse hunt. That's probably a good way to say it. In the hills, the mountains of outside Bozeman. I wasn't telling you where. I know you're thinking, where? Where were you? I'm not going to tell you, bastards.
It's his elk spot, too.
Yeah.
He has to keep it
You got to
secret.
keep it secret. Nah, I went to my elk spot and shot a bunch of guns. That's what you know. That's what you know.
We're just trying to crowd him into the right areas.
Yeah, we're trying to push him down into the private where I can't go.
Yeah.
But we went there and we took your gun dogs. I'll let you guys introduce your gun dogs to the show. They're not here, but you can just describe, tell the story of how you came to own these dogs. I'll let you go first, Morgan, with Meat Eater's original office dog, Pinion.
Pinion. Yep. So I'd been looking at bird dogs for quite a while, a couple years, knowing that I was wanting to get one. Just needed to have my lifestyle settle down a little bit. So moved up to Bozeman, got a job at Meat Eater, and I was like, hey, great time for a dog.
Yeah.
Actually got him a little bit before, but I picked up a Griff. My brother and I had been chatting for quite a while.
Now explain Griff. Explain Griff, because
Full name.
Joe
Full name.
Joe has corrected me a few times on the way that I say these words and where the dogs. To me, it's like, oh, dog. But you guys have sophisticated ways to speak about these dogs.
It's important.
Yeah, Joe's on fire right now. He's very upset.
So I have a wire-haired pointing Griffon, if you want to.
How you say Griffon?
Griffon.
Griffon? Is there an N at the end?
There's an N at the end. But
Griffon?
Griffon.
It's like pamplemousse.
How do you say it? Yeah, like pamplemousse? This is bullshit.
But
I say
Americans,
Griffon.
Americans call them
I
Griffs.
get that N.
Griffs. We call them Griffs.
Yep,
Like a natural light beer is a natty light.
that's right.
Okay, I got
Because
it.
we're too lazy to say the rest of it.
I like Griffs.
Yep.
I'm having a son here pretty soon. I would name him Griff, and I'd be all right with it. What do you guys think? Griff O'Brien?
Yeah, it would work.
I'm
That
not
goes.
feeling it. Yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't feel like real
Did
electricity.
we just
around
name your
that.
son on a podcast?
We'll have a contest or some shit about it. You know?
Okay, great.
We'll have something to drive engagement around naming my son. Like that's-
Something with a giveaway.
Some good Instagram stories.
Yeah, that's some good Instagram. I got to get the engagement. That's really what this is all about.
Griff Hunter O'Brien.
Griff Hunter O'Brien.
Griff Danger O'Brien.
Griff. Ooh, danger.
I like
Nice.
it. Yeah.
I like what you're doing.
Same
there.
middle name as Austin Powers.
Austin Danger Powers. All right, so you got your Griffon, and you named him Pinion. Why'd you name him that?
I kind of nerded out on the name.
Did you ever ask Ben to guess?
No, Ben.
Yeah, before you
guess.
tell him, you should guess.
Listen, Joe, this is your first
too, Phil.
podcast. Don't start. Don't start jumping in there.
Second.
Swinging his
Second
weight
is your
around.
third podcast.
Sorry. No, it's a great question because everybody I've heard him explain the name to, like they've all had to guess before.
Pinion.
Yeah, and nobody could get it.
Pinion.
You too, Phil. You're jumping in on this
Yeah,
one.
Phil.
Yeah.
You do it, Phil, because I'm going to get it wrong. Pinion.
Pinion?
Rack and pinion steering.
Close, but no.
Lots of people say that.
That's the second most guessed.
I have no idea.
Okay.
It sounds like it has to do with something has to do with balance. Like it's a tool you use.
Usually in Montana, people name their dogs after rivers and shit. You know, all the-
Or mountain ranges.
Yeah, all the dogs are like West Fork of the Salmon. Like, it's a long dog name.
Or Beretta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Lots of Berettas.
Pinion.
Yep. Pinion.
Do
So,
tell.
pinion, the pinion feathers on a bird are the feathers on the wing that give it vertical lift. So when you're flushing a bird, they're using the pinion feathers.
Sounds
like
a lot
that.
like balance.
Fucking
to me.
A, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
That is good.
That is good.
Super
So-
smart. It was just
oh my
like,
gosh. Yeah.
I peaked on that
well
one.
done.
Yeah.
Well done. I thought it was going to be stupid, but that's not. That is
Yeah.
great.
My next dog's going to be like Frank or something like that.
Frank, what's that about? I don't know.
It's a
like the
dude.
name Frank.
Hot dogs. All right. Well, how old is Pinion?
Pinion is about a year and a half, in between a year and a half, 2 years. So
Okay. Joe, we're gonna get to other thing. I have other questions, but Joe, tell us about Fergie.
Oh, Ferg.
Ferguson.
So the reason why I
The
get
Ferginator.
so passionate about, the breeds and stuff is because Ferg is a German wire hair pointer. So he looks almost identical to Pinion,
Yeah.
as you can tell, but they're completely different breeds. But so that's the big one there. And he just turned a year right before opening day this year.
He did well.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
He's doing good.
He
He's
did
doing
very
really good.
well. He kicked ass. Kicked bird tail.
He's doing good. Now he has a 6 grouse shot over him, 3 Huns. And yeah. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Now,
First
Phil
season's
and
doing
I
great.
are non-dog owners, right, Phil?
Technically, I do own a dog now, but I like
Let's
to.
not get technical. It's not a dog. What do you do with it?
I look at it. If it looks hungry, I drop some food on the ground.
Does it
No, I'm
chase
just-
birds around?
No, she's an Australian Kelpie. It's a herding dog, very full of energy, and I am
she
too
could definitely be a
scared
bird
to
dog.
bring
So
her
a
into
flushing
this
dog.
office.
Yeah.
Yeah, she could be a flush.
But yeah, I didn't grow up. She's more my wife's dog than mine, which sounds like a mean thing to say. I do love her; she's very sweet. But I didn't grow up with dogs though, so I don't really have that kind of attachment.
Yeah, me either, man. I had one dog growing up. Its name was Ross, and it was batshit crazy. I mean, crazy. Like it had the things it did made no sense to anyone. It would just stand by the door and whine for days. It had a mental disorder of some kind, and that was really the only dog I've ever had. I had a girlfriend that had a pit bull one time, and I lived with the pit bull, and I just remember mostly farts from the dog, and that's it really. My only real dog experience. Now, I've got some young sons, so I'm going to have to get a dog eventually. So a lot of this for me is just a little bit of research. Like, what dog should I get? So as a non-dog owner, I would like to understand the relationship that you guys have to these dogs. And watching them work, Joe yesterday was more concerned, or more like what he was trying to get out of the hunt was not grouse meat. It was watching his dog work and watching the progress that this dog had made over training and time and work.
Yeah.
And that was the real reward. So that's something I think all folks that are hunters and maybe don't have dogs, or upland hunters that don't have dogs, or, haven't trained a dog from a puppy and understand, they just don't understand. They don't understand the reward of seeing all that work come into fruition on a hunt like that. So who wants to take that? Who wants to try to explain that? Which one of you? Both of you?
Jump in. I feel the same way on that. It's like there's a certain aspect that I love going out and upland hunting, but at the same time, now that I own a dog and I put training into my dog and I've done all this work with him, the more bird exposure I can possibly give that dog to drive his natural instinct and get him going, the better off that dog's going to be, and the happier that dog's going to be, the better it's going to be in the field. So yeah, the more time that you can get out there and just enjoy that, and like that just shows, like as that goes over time and that dog starts to respond to the bird and they start to learn birds, and not only like learn how to bird hunt, but learn how to bird hunt certain species. A pheasant's going to react differently than a mountain grouse, like a blue grouse. And so to see that dog being able to like be on the tail of a pheasant and be able to sweep around it and block it before it starts to run too far. And so that way you can close a distance in between the dog and the pheasant and get that flush. To see those sort of things happening is just incredible. So to see that dog click through different experiences it's an awesome thing to see.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, the hunt that we did yesterday, you could do that hunt without dogs, but boy, it's gonna suck. They're such a good. I mean, you'd hate to reference them as a tool, but that's in this case, they're a tool for better hunting. But that's not really the point. And I think Ferg yesterday, he just kicked ass. I mean, he we were in some pretty tough conditions. It was wet. A lot of the birds, we feel like it's certainly early in the morning, were up in a tree or didn't want to flush. They'd rather just run. And we had a lot of instances where we probably could have done better, and Ferg showed us up.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, that was one thing that I was super proud of. It's when we got down on that first covey of birds, and he pointed the one in the tree that we couldn't get our safeties off in time to shoot.
Yeah, that was...
But stuff like that, like Morgan said, when a dog starts to figure out the bird specifically that you're hunting at that time, it's really cool because they're learning at the same time. And when you've been going through all this training, I mean, since I brought Ferg home, it's been just like constant training. Everybody asks, it's like, how many hours a day do you put in on training? It's not an hour count. It's a round the clock. You're always training them. Anytime they're with you, they're being trained type of thing. And watching him work in the field like that and figuring out that, oh, I smell this bird, but it's up in the tree, so I'm going to point a bird in the tree. It's awesome. It's super cool.
Yeah, it becomes a whole culture around upland hunting. And certainly our interview guest that's coming up is Ben O. Williams. He's 81 years old, and he's awesome. And he is renowned for many things within the upland world, dog training being one of them, Western upland hunting tactics, and just kind of being a voice for that culture. And it's an interesting one because it brings in the dog so strongly. It brings in, there's just a different look of a guy who's just into upland hunting. We talk about the waterfowl hunter, the typified at least waterfowl hunter in our world, and there's also a very stereotypical upland guy from years past. I think. Can
you go into that stereotype?
No.
Or can you give us a description?
No, I don't want to get... Yeah.
Tweed. I like that.
Old white guys with that are wearing Orvis. But I think Ben, and you'll hear some of his stories, brings to light how kind of that culture, what it means to own a dog and to train a dog and have that be a big part of your life, because it's certainly, while learning to elk call or some of these other things become part of your life, by getting a pet for this purpose or primarily for this purpose or in some vein for this purpose takes over a pretty big part of your life. I mean, you guys can speak to that. Like you own a gun dog. You don't ever get to take a break from it. It's a commitment. So I'm sure, for either of you, I'm sure it's much more rewarding to see that all work out.
Yeah, and that goes back into the training aspect and looking at what Ben's done in his life and like how he looks at training dogs, and that's what I've tried to implement in is like get your basic obedience done, do all that in the backyard, have him respond when you're trying to call him back in, all of that, all the basic stuff. But then when you take that dog out in the field, just let it hunt and just hunt that dog as much as you can, and that dog will learn how to bird hunt due to birds and getting that wild sit in his face. How the birds react. It's just like you can put birds in a launcher and go play around. Like that'll work to like help the point and all that. But to really get a dog going, like just take it out and hunt it.
Yeah,
that's one thing I've learned from Ben O. Williams.
Not me.
So,
you haven't learned that from me.
I haven't learned a damn thing from you.
I learned shit from Ben O'Brien. Ben O. Williams. I think a big part of talking to a guy like that who's lived it is learning those little idiosyncrasies, right? Learning, not only the stories he has about the relationships with these dogs, but what to look for when you're out there, what to look for success, what to look for failure, what to look on for workable, teachable moments. I think all of that you learn from Ben. And then it colors a little bit more of a hunt. And when we were out there yesterday, you can look at different aspects of the way the dogs are working, the way they're succeeding or failing. It just adds a little bit more to the hunt, that's for sure.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. It was funny. I was actually talking to Danielle Pruitt yesterday. She's looking at doing a hunt up here in Montana a little bit later on. She's just like, I can't bring my dog up. I want to come like hunt sharptails. Like, what do I do? And I was just like, you know what? I have never ever in my life gone on a bird hunt without a dog. I was like, I don't know what to tell you.
Bring your dog.
Yeah.
Is what I would
figure
tell
that
you.
one out.
Yeah. Bring your dog. Yeah. No, it's just, it adds to the experience. I enjoyed the hunt yesterday. How many times did we miss, Joe? Did we miss any?
I shot once yesterday and I missed.
Yeah. I shot 3 times.
Yeah.
And shot 1 bird. That's
not bad. I was up on top of the ridge when I split off from you guys. It sounded like there was like an artillery range going on down below.
I feel like I might have shot maybe 4 or 5 times.
I only shot once because I know on that Hail Mary shot that I missed, the gun jammed up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, what's going on?
No, we had one. We had split up from Morgan. Morgan went up the ridge, and we kind of went down the road and down into this little cut face. I mean, we're in a pretty steep ridge line, and we're going around the corner. And of course, Ferg drops down into this real brushy little meadow that drops off. He gets down in there. He flushes one out of a tree. So we drop down, kind of get close to him. And at some point, we were going back up the hill. He runs in front of us and flushes, what, three grouse?
At first, just the one took off. And
one took off first and flew. And these things, like
he locked up back on point. And
yeah,
I was like, oh look, he must be still smelling the one bird right there.
When they get up in the air, when these grouse get up in the air in these steep ridges, they take off.
Yeah,
they take off and they soar to who the hell knows where. So you kind of really have one shot at them.
Yep.
You know, some other upland game, not in a mountain situation. You know, not in this kind of steep country. You can flush them and watch where they land, and possibly, if they're not just going to run off, get back on them. In this case, you kind of have one shot, and the scenario we were in is going to probably be a pretty long one. And so the first bird is a pretty long shot. We both cracked off at it, missed it. I think at least 4 times, if not 3 times. He just kept on soaring.
Yeah, he did.
And then we were kind of comparing notes about that and talking to each other, and of course,
dog's still on point at this time.
Dog is
he's still over there on point, and I literally said to Ben, I was like, oh look, he must be on Old 10 over there. And I look back over and he's just sitting there, and then 4 more birds flush.
What's that old saying, Joe?
Trust your dog.
Yeah.
Trust your dog.
Always trust your bird dog.
Always trust your bird dog. Yeah. We I don't know that we didn't trust him. We were just being we were just focused about our miss. And by the time I got my shotgun load, in fact, when the one that we killed flushed, I wasn't sure if I'd loaded my shotgun, but I shouldered it anyway and took the safety off anyway. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be able to load it, so even if I didn't, I'll throw her up and give her a click. But he flushed a 5th grouse out of the same area. He kind of flew towards us, and I popped him, and he dropped. And that was our initial bird. And then Morgan cracked another one later on. And I feel it's a three bird a day limit per person, right? So you're not out there. We could have shot 9, as many as we could have shot. They're pretty big birds. I cooked my breasts up last night and just put them over rice. It's pretty good. They're pretty good. But we do have a fully plucked one we got to figure out what we're going to do with.
Yep.
What do you got? You got plans for that?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. I mean, the easiest thing in my mind is just like toss that thing on the smoker and it's going to be delicious, especially since it's got the skin still on it. But I'm going to talk to Danielle and see.
Yeah, stuff it with something.
Yeah, do something fancy with it. She does really good with all that.
I know.
Me, I'm just like, oh, maybe I'll put some ketchup on it. That'll be good.
Like, I'll just... Yeah, last night my wife's like, I'm just going to throw it in a cast iron skillet and put it over rice. And it was great, man.
Well, I used that fins and feather rub from Traeger on that sage grouse and kept it whole. Actually spatchcocked it and put it on the grill. Oh, man, it was good.
Explain spatchcocking, Joe.
You hit half the bird, basically, just so you could lay it on the grill so it cooks more evenly than putting the whole bird on.
But isn't it still the whole bird, but you like cut down the back of it and like open it up?
Yeah, so you just kind of like fillet it open.
Yeah.
So it
Phil,
lays
have you ever
evenly.
spatchcocked?
I have, actually, yeah.
You have?
Mm-hmm.
What have you spatchcocked? Like a Cornish game head?
Yes, exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, one that I just bought from the store.
Oh, okay. He said, yeah.
I didn't get it with my bird dog. No.
We gotta get your dog out. What's the dog's name?
Mango.
Boy, that is unfortunate.
Is that after the mango white
I'd say
claw?
I'd say it's slightly cooler than Pinion. Don't you guys think?
Boy, your dog's name is Mango?
She's a sweet pup.
It's his favorite white
this
claw
podcast
flavor,
is
Ben.
over.
Your fan club is going to either be... I think your fan club might even be into it, Phil. There's a lot of people that write
says
in.
something about both
There's
myself.
a lot of people that write in like, Phil's awesome, keep Phil. But they're going to hear this part and they're going to have a real serious decision to make to keep... Whether to keep
Back me up.
following you, whether to keep as a part of your fan club or just get... This is the point where I got to get off the train, the Phil train.
My wife likes to name... She wanted to name it after a food. So she made this list... Probably like 50 names of different like spices and shit.
This is my dog, Cumin.
Yeah, honestly, that might have been on the list. No joke.
Really?
Yeah.
I just learned about this dog named Kayak. And I just like, every time I hear them talking about it, I'm just like, oh, they're going to put the kayak on the roof. I was like, oh, no, that's a dog.
Yeah, you can't name something another inanimate object.
Yeah. This is
So
my dog.
Mango,
This is
you
my
had a
dog
list
food
of-
processor.
Yeah, you had a list of foods.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
What was like the?
What was some of the other
like
foods?
Plan B, C, D?
Apricot.
Yeah,
honestly, I think like paprika was on there.
Son of a Phil.
that's way too many. Yeah, that's way too much.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Cayenne.
Cayenne.
That's kind of a good name,
That
right?
ended a little bit different. But you somehow landed on mango.
Mango. I don't know. She's
Boy.
got an energy.
I'm very much on board with Pinion at this point, but mango.
She's completely black too, so she looks nothing like
A mango.
like a
mango
brightly
at all.
colored. No, but she's got the personality of a mango. That makes sense, right?
Bright and sunny.
Exactly.
Hard to
Acidic.
hard
Sweet.
to cut up. You ever try to cut up a fucking mango?
Yeah, they're ridiculous.
What is up with that?
I don't know.
You got to
Yeah.
take like a sledgehammer to them. It's terrible. Anyway, that's a terrible dog's name, Phil. And I'm sorry if that's offensive, but how are you feeling about
We don't
it?
approve.
I'm not offended at all.
Not.
No.
You're
No.
in, okay.
I personally
I'd like to meet.
it.
I'd like to meet Mango, and spend some time around her, and just maybe I would change my mind. But for right now,
Yeah, if there were, I
Very
may bring her in someday, but it's probably not going to happen.
no.
She is, we picked her up from the shelter across the pass in Livingston, and she was a stray on an Indian reservation so we have no idea what her life was like before
Hold
we
on.
got her.
Back up. I'm gonna hold on.
Oh God.
Okay, tell the story now.
When my family decided to adopt
Kleenex.
or rescue a dog, we went over the Bozeman Pass to the nearby town of Livingston, Montana, the Stafford Animal Shelter. Lovely people. We went to actually go meet a different dog, but Mango, when we met her, we couldn't say no. After hearing her life story of growing up stray on the Fort Peck Indian Reservation, having to, fight for food and love, we wanted to bring her home
What a beautiful bond.
and have her be a part of our family.
Oh God. All right, just take a moment. Just listen to Sarah. Yeah. Oh, fuck. Let's go. Mango.
She's still alive. She's not dead, Ben. She's living a healthy.
Why, Mango? Why?
She's only about 2.5 years old.
Let's record like a pre-Mango.
This is dark.
We love you.
Way too dark, man. Can't do
Sorry.
that.
All right, that's got Sarah McLachlan. The YouTube video's got 10. Well, that's almost 100 million views on that baby.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's all from podcasters who bring up the song to
bring up the
play
song.
during sad.
Or
Yeah.
people
See
that
that.
are very sad and just want to cry at home by themselves.
Here's a good way to
Play
be
this one.
interactive with THC. Write in about the name Mango and tell me what you think. And tell me if I'm being too mean to Phil. And because a lot of you people think that I'm mean to Phil. And it's not mean. It's just, opinionated.
Yeah, sure. I'm totally fine with it.
See?
Yeah.
There's a sadness in
He
his.
just cries every night.
There's a sadness in Phil's eyes.
Phil's
in
the
the
one
corner.
playing these songs.
Ben comes over for his reparations.
Yeah, what if I'm taking this, Phil.
Okay,
I'm taking this ashtray.
fine, Mr. O'Brien.
I'm leaving.
All right. Ashtray.
Leaving with this. Anyway, back to bird dogs. Do you think we would ever get Mango on a hunt?
She would have the time of her life. It would
We
just
should
be
take
it would be a
Mango.
matter of getting her energy level. She would be so wired.
We should take
it would take some
Mango,
training
huh?
for sure, but
What's
she would
her-
love it.
What's her prey drive like? Does she like cats? Does she like to
Does she like
attack
ever go?
cats?
She ever
Oh,
go
no,
like
she loves
bunnies?
cats. We have cats in our home as well.
Is there any photos of her on your Instagram?
I don't think so, which says
Do you have any photos of her on your phone?
I'm sure
Yeah,
I do.
let me see
It
it.
might take a while. How about you guys talk and I'll try to find some picture of Mango.
Hold on, we'll just do a interlude.
Oh my gosh. Ben, I would like to comment on how great of an actor you are.
I was crying.
You were legitimately tearing up.
I know
Was I
that was,
tearing?
that was
Yeah.
impressive.
I was when he was telling the Mango story. I was legit tearing up. 'Cause I had to
It
feel
was
it.
great.
I had to get into the why Mango.
Got to dig in there.
You should just head to Hollywood right now.
I know, dude. I was really had.
It's not a very good angle because I took him from above, but But that's Mango.
Oh, Mango. Let me help describe.
I need to find a cuter picture, more adorable.
Yeah, that's not. I mean,
she's frolicking.
She looks
in
a
the
bit like
Spanish Peak Wilderness.
She looks a little bit apprehensive. She has like a kind of a short legs, a tail, unimpressive tail. Jet black.
Yes.
Jet black like the night.
Wiry.
To me, I'm picturing a
Like the
black
night.
corgi right now. That's what
Kinda
I'm
like,
saying.
yeah.
I can't.
Kinda like-
I don't see the picture right now.
A bit
This is
like a
what I'm-
short-faced,
getting that same
like
thing.
a dingo.
Okay, let me find. Yeah, Dingo is a good.
Yeah?
That is good.
That's
is,
a good one.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on. We
I can
gotta-
kind of
okay,
picture.
here,
My
she's-
family had an Australian cattle dog.
What do you think, Joe? You think that bird would flush a grouse, or that
The
dog?
dog.
Will that dog
Yeah.
hunt?
I think she'd definitely flush a grouse, but just might be a little too far off
Too
for
far
us to get
off,
a
yeah.
shot at it.
Does Mango listen to you, Phil?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like if you would say, "Come here, Mango,"
Oh yeah, for sure.
she would come.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Good. That's all you really need. Do you have any like commands that you give her?
Not a whole lot. I mean, just the basics.
What are the
Sit.
Sit.
Come.
Don't eat the garbage.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to get off to, do you think we covered off on bird dogs? We're going to get off to Ben O. Williams. Ben O. Williams has a famous dog, Winston, that he's wrote some pretty amazing, I was reading it last night, some pretty amazing prose about. Morgan, you're a big fan and have featured Ben on some stuff. Kind of describe what he means to the Upland community before we get to him.
Oh man, he is like the grandfather of Upland, I guess you could say, of all things Upland. He's such a kind soul, a great hunter. He's just like, I think he's been described as like the dog master of Zen or something like that.
I like that.
He just enjoys every aspect of life, and like I like his little motto that he's got. And he just wrote a book called Best Day Yet, and that's like his everyday motto is Best Day Yet.
Best day yet.
Everything is cherished, everything is appreciated. Like this is the guy that everybody wants for their grandfather, sort of guy.
Oh,
So
I would agree. I definitely agree.
amazing guy.
You hear a guy like that, his reflections on life and how big a role. I think a little bit different than other folks, but how big a role dogs, specifically bird dogs and upland hunting, has been in this man's life, and to see how good of a person and how well rounded he is, and how well spoken and intelligent, and it makes you want to dig into that culture, and like this guy's the center point of that culture. There's something to it because he is a wonderful dude.
Yeah. I want to be around him all the time and just be a sponge and just try and absorb as much as I possibly can from him. So,
Yeah, I've often listeners will write in that I like to interview old dudes because we've had a lot of legends. I feel like Jim Posowitz on there and others, but I just feel like when you get somebody like that, I mean, it may sound melodramatic, but this is a treasure. This dude is
Yep.
to record his thoughts on upland hunting is something that we should really cherish because he may not be around that much longer. If you ask him, he'll probably be around for another 20 years.
Yeah, it's talking about like his age. It was funny. I was listening yesterday. Like we were supposed to go like directly over to Ben's after the hunt, but we our hike got a little delayed due to like up and down and all around chasing birds. Typical way that a bird hunt goes. But hearing from Ben, just like he's like, yeah, the afternoons really don't work for me. I'm older. I just don't want to talk to people in the afternoons. It's like, all right, I appreciate that.
When you turn 80, like you can just not, your give a shit factor can just go can decrease to whatever you'd like it to be.
It's like 2:30 p.m. It's cocktail hour. I'm turning off.
All right, well, we're gonna get to Ben. Thanks for sharing Mango with us, Phil.
Yeah, that was the highlight.
Yeah,
of course.
That's really it. That's really it. You think Mango would ever want to come and sit in on a podcast?
Oh yeah.
Think so?
She wants nothing more than to be around people and to please.
Please.
But sometimes she wants it too much, and she can't control herself, and she has a breathing fit because she gets too excited.
Oh, too excited.
Wow.
Okay,
Let's get some audio.
This
on
is the
that.
kind of energy that she has. She's
Before we
long
go,
mic.
Phil, before we
yes.
go.
Oh,
before we
okay,
go,
here we go.
Here we go. Before we go, I would like you to describe the first time that you saw Mango, like the first time you looked in her eyes and knew that she was yours. Okay? Let's take a quick
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
We actually visited the Stafford Animal Shelter to see a different dog. A little terrier that was possibly left by a circus that ran through town. But that dog didn't really want anything to do with us.
Like, yeah, you're not a clown.
Exactly. But as we were watching this other dog play, Mango joined the fray. And she...
The clouds split a little bit. Ray of sunshine.
Exactly. Thank you, Morgan. Joe for the commentary. If you guys have any more commentary to add. Mango pranced over to us, laid her head in my lap. And much like Ben was tearing up several minutes ago, I also had tears streaming down my face.
Those big brown eyes looking up.
That part may not be true. Most of these details aren't true. But the part about the circus dog is true. That part is true.
I just want to go, why Mango?
Yep, we brought her home. She's great.
Really wrap that one up.
Yeah,
there you go.
All right, we're... good job, Phil.
I want to know about this terrier now. Circus
Yeah,
dog.
kind of do too.
It's still there. You think it's still there?
I hope not. I feel bad leaving it.
We have a bit of a budget for THC. We could get a dog,
A circus dog.
a circus dog. We could get a THC dog,
New mascot?
huh? It could get
Yeah.
sponsored by something.
I like dogs.
Yeah, we
Okay.
could name it White Claw.
That's a pretty good dog name.
That's actually a pretty.
Yeah, that would be.
We could go to a shelter and find a white dog.
Uh-huh.
Anyway.
Or a black dog with a white paw.
Oh.
Mic drop, I'm out. See you guys.
We have. I have forgot to check the quality of this podcast. Yeah, it is. Yep, it's going downhill. All right, we're gonna go to Livingston, Montana. We're gonna check in with a true legend, somebody that we are very lucky to know and have a sit down with, and his name is Ben O. Williams. Enjoy.
I guess I grew up on an older road, a pedal to the metal.
Ben, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are
Good.
you, Ben?
Yeah, two Bens.
Two Bens.
We'll call it a fine name. Well, thanks for having me in your home. I really appreciate you having me here.
Oh, good. I appreciate you coming and always like to visit with you guys.
Yeah, well, we got a lot to talk about, a lot to cover, but I first like to have guests try to explain their surroundings, because I think it's good for the listener to understand like where we are and what we're exactly up to. And I think for a writer who focuses on bird dogs and upland hunting and shotguns, your office is perfect. It's got just about everything it needs to have. So describe people kind of your surroundings. We're sitting in your office and kind of give people a lay of the land in here.
Okay. Several years ago, I used to have a bulletin board, basically, with a lot of pictures and et cetera. So, but over the years, I got so crowded, I decided to take all those photographs down and put up some of my paintings that I received from friends or bought. And so I'm kind of lacking on pictures, but I really like I call this my office, basically, and not only being a bird hunter, but I'm very fascinated as a bird biologist, and I'm a field biologist, and I like to study game birds. So to study game birds, basically, the important thing is to have a good library. And if you look around here, you can see, I think possibly, I'm not exactly sure, but I think I probably have one of the largest libraries of upland game birds in America. In fact, I'm almost sure of it.
I would agree.
I have documents that these are theses and papers written, and I have just about every single book on hunting birds and bird ecology.
Yeah, you have American Game Bird Shooting by George Bird Cornell up there, I see.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah,
so
the
many
oldest
wonderful
book
books.
I have is written 1853. And I have a lot of them in the 1910. I have game management, Leopold's books, his Round River book.
Yeah.
So I'm a real student of learning about game birds. It's not just going out there and shooting birds.
Yeah.
And I always felt to be a good game bird hunter, you should have a bird dog.
Yeah.
So that's why I get very involved with raising good bird dogs.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, we talk about writers, you've written how many books? Dozens.
I have written 15 books.
Yeah.
And 5 of those are with other authors. So, and maybe 16. I don't know. It doesn't make any difference.
Countless articles for Covey Rise. You've written, I'm sure, for Pheasants Forever over the years.
I Point Dog Journal. I've written for them for 30 years. In fact, I just retired writing from them this year. Just because I thought that 30 years was probably enough for that magazine. And then I worked for Gray Sporting Journal. I worked for Shooting Sportsman, some other smaller magazines, and the only one I write for right now full time is actually Covey Rise.
Yeah.
And I also have written a little bit for Tyler Sharp for his
Modern Huntsman as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, lovely title. There's a lot of things, but I think just in general to kind of color what you mean to the upland community. I mean, we were talking before we hit record, writers like Tom Kelly in the turkey hunting world, Nash Buckingham in the waterfowl world. You have the likes of Robert Ruark in hunting Africa. I would easily place you within that, pantheon of writers that are seminal to the pursuit, for you, for sporting dogs, for upland game, and for shotgunning even. So you're right there alongside of the greats, and I think it just shows a commitment to the culture, a commitment to doing those things.
Flattering, but I appreciate it.
I like to start out with a compliment to get you to warm you up, to get you going.
But well, probably when it comes to Hungarian partridge, I'm the only one that's ever written a book in North America on Hungarian partridge. There was another book written in England, completely different than mine. But since then, I think Guy Veldine wrote a kind of a history of his philosophy of bird hunting, but completely different than mine. My Hun book is a good example. It's called Huns and Hun Hunting. It's about their history, habits, and it's a complete book on Hun hunting. If you want to learn about Hun hunting, that is the book you want to take with you.
Yeah.
Because I put that is 50 years of work of that, and
your writing career spans that long, right? It spans 50, how many years?
well, let's go back. I started basically hunting for Huns.
Yeah.
That's when if you want to count that first day in 1955. So from 1955 to now is...
It's a lot of years. We don't need to count them. We're neither of us are math majors.
That's pretty close to 60, so that.
We'll call it 60. Get around. I think it's, and we, again, talking before the podcast started about why it is that you found yourself, so ingratiated, so enamored with not only Huns, but Brittany's and the type of hunting that you like to do. And this isn't something that you fell in love with yesterday. You've been doing it for the better part of your entire life. So we should, I think, I like to get to those whys, start at the very beginning, kind of your first introduction to bird hunting or upland hunting, or the first time you saw it, the first time that it kind of entered your mind as something you might want to do.
The first time it entered my mind was when I was in second grade, when I went with my grandfather. And my mother let me skip a day of school, and I was extremely fascinated with being with him and actually going out and walking back then in old railroad tracks looking for birds. And he was originally from England, and he talked about the hunting over there, and he really enjoyed hunting. And he would often bring up, and he called me his bird dog because I was a little kid, and I'd go in there and break brush for him, and he would talk about having a bird dog that find birds, and that fascinated me. A little later, probably in the junior high year, I happened to get a Springer Spaniel, or our family got a Springer Spaniel from some people from Chicago that the dog needed to be in the country, and I lived in the country, so we got the Springer Spaniel. Later on, I found out it was gun shy, but anyway, so I called him Mike the dog, just because of the fact when I was a little kid in school, and I could always tell my schoolmates that I had a dog, and his name was Mike the dog. So and I just called him Mike the dog, and I used to walk the railroad tracks to school, and he used to follow me, and then when I got out of school, he would come and meet me, and we'd walk back and we'd hunt together. So, and then it was interesting because him and I didn't know anything about dogs or, just as being a young person. And the first time when the season finally opened, first time I went out and got him, we went out and I think it was a couple of pheasants. The pheasants got up and I shot, and he ran all the way back home, and it really upset me. And so I went all the way back home, and he was happy to see me, but I knew that he was really scared of the gun. So, but it took about a year to work it out, and I just would go out, and I would never shoot close to him. And finally, he would kind of only run halfway home and then come back, or then he got closer and closer. So that particular bond of having a bird dog, I think, and chasing birds, especially we had pheasant, but quail also. I think that really probably was a key factor that I got so involved with birds and bird dogs.
Yeah.
And right after that, after high school, I just was right into the service 4 years, and just as soon as I got out, and like I said, I went to NYU for a year, and then moved back to Illinois to go to Northern. And the first thing I wanted to do was get a bird dog and hunt. So that's kind of how it started.
And it's funny with bird dogs, we're talking about like what hunting over a dog, whether waterfowl or upland or whatever, squirrels, doesn't really matter. What that adds to the hunting experience. Like what you get to not only have your own experience, but you get to, one, you're training the dog, you're working with the dog. What does hunting over a dog add to the experice? I mean, you said that's what really that's what really connected you to hunting, but like how would you explain that to folks?
Well, first off, I don't think I would ever hunt without a dog.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just it's that simple. I think years ago I used to hunt waterfowl a little bit, jump shooting a waterfowl, but still to have a water dog or a duck dog was very important to me. And I must say that I wouldn't hunt birds if I didn't have dogs. And even at my age right now is when I first start shooting and killing birds was very important, like all of us young folks do. I mean, that's pretty natural, but I think eventually you'll find him mature, and the killing of the bird is not very important anymore.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't even like to kill birds anymore. I just
that's an interesting point. I've talked to a lot of folks that have been hunting for a lot of years, and it's not uncommon to have that sentiment to where you've hunted, you've kind of mastered the craft in a way, or mastered as much as you believe that you can, and then the killing becomes at some point in your life a different thing.
In fact, I've even gotten the point probably the last 10, 15 years. I'm even a little squeamish about killing a bird.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, that's.
Do you ever think like if you would talk to your 30-year-old self that you could explain that concept to that 33-year-old or 35-year-old guy? You said you told me before we hit record that you were hunting every single day of the season for Huns when you first moved out west. Do you think you could talk to that guy and explain to him where you are now in life?
Oh, I think so. I think when you hunt a tremendous amount of time, like I have, and even written a lot about it, I believe there comes a time when the actual killing of the bird becomes less and less important. And the most important thing is watching the dogs point, seeing the dogs work, and then having the experience of the flush. And it's really, I would honestly say that there are many, many times, in fact, more times now than not, is I just raise the gun up and just say, bang, you're dead.
You do.
I do. I just say, bang, you're dead, and they fly away. And
they call that counting coup in some cultures. Yeah, that there was another folks that listen to the show will hopefully know that we had a gentleman named Wyman Menzer on he lives in Benjamin, Texas, and he's a famed writer on coyotes and coyote ecology, and he's a photographer. Described to me the same kind of idea. When he got into his 70s, he started taking pictures instead of killing, and it's a common theme that I've found.
Well, that's exactly what I did. I mean, we're talking about the year I retired was 86, and I shot a lot of game birds. I'm not going to mention how many, but more than my share.
Yeah.
I should honestly say. And the next year, I carried a camera, and I think I only wound up that year shooting 16 Huns.
Yeah.
And I started photographing when we had slides, and you had a row of 36, and you had to be very careful what you're doing, okay? In other words, there were times, and I always had Nikons, and I liked big, fast cameras, the fastest I could get. And when you had a road of 36, you had to be very careful when you get a rise of birds because you didn't want to run out with the best shots and so forth. So I was not conservative, but I was very aware of that. And in my files right now, I can't tell you exactly, but I have fairly close to 50,000 slides.
Wow.
And I have files and files kept. The nice thing about it is I can still use them. In fact, that cover right there is my photograph.
Oh wow! So we're looking at a Pheasants Forever cover as a
Someone has I had Bob White do the cover, do the painting.
Wow.
And that's this was taken in, I think, in about 87, 88. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. One thing about photography I might mention is that it kind of replaces a gun.
Yeah.
It's kind of a neat thing to be able to come back and take your slides and look at them all but using slides back then was a lot of work because you have to send them in, you got to wait for them, you got to put them on a light table, you got to look at them all, and you start throwing them away.
When you finally find the good one, it's quite the reward. Yeah,
that's
other
correct.
than like the
and most
instant gratification of digital.
It's a lot easier nowadays. And it was only been, I can't remember now, maybe 10 years at the most. When digital first came out, I didn't want anything to do with it, basically, and it was new then. And I got such nice slide equipment. I got 2 big Nikons and big lenses and digital slides.
Yeah,
or digital photography, but I did.
Well,
but I've never done it like I did with slides.
Yeah. Well, that goes to what and a lot of things we were talking about earlier. Again, that you've pioneered a few things here in the West, and then you've seen 5 decades, 6 decades of change from when you were one of the first people in this. We're here in the Shields Valley in Livingston, Montana. You were one of the first folks to even desire to hunt Huns in this valley, or even to bring a Brittany over here.
There was nobody. There was absolutely nobody when I arrived.
Yeah, what year is it that you arrived? Do we say
62?
62.
I think I started hunting in 62. Nobody had a bird dog. They had duck dogs, labs, and so forth. Nobody even heard of pointing dogs where I was hunting. And back in those days, if the land wasn't posted, you could hunt. So I had a little Volkswagen, and I'd take my Volkswagen after school and put my 3 dogs, load them up, and we'd take off and hunt. And I'd go up to Shields, and I could hunt any place I wanted.
Yeah.
And then the word kind of got around that there was this crazy school teacher with these fuzzy dogs and this little blue Volkswagen chasing these impossible birds.
Yeah, and you there's a lot of things that you did in those years that were very unique for this part of the world. But Huns being maybe the most unique. You were just telling me a story about one of the local game wardens who had never even really sold a license to anybody for bird hunting. And he was dumbfounded that you didn't want a big game license, or you didn't want to pay for the big game tag.
Yeah.
So did you feel like a pioneer? Or you just doing something that you wanted to?
I think that's a good word, pioneer, but I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
The other thing that may really contribute to my hunting of Huns is I used to love to walk, and I was very physical in walking. And once I started hunting those Huns, my dogs did not range out a lot. I was so used to hunting the little amount of time I had them to hunt in very close. Then I started to study Huns and work them and found out that we got to cover country and big country. And then when I first started, I would just hunt in agriculture country. Then I found out basically that when I was in prairie country, it was just as good.
Yeah.
And I was told they don't occupy prairie country, and I proved them completely wrong.
So the questions you were being asked is, why would you hunt these things and they don't live there? And
Yeah.
then you're out there
Yeah.
every single day of the season.
Any rancher I would talk, and I'd stop in and say, one fellow I stopped in and said, I'd like to hunt those. And I said, huh? He said, I'd never heard these. He said, there's some little chickens out there. He said, is that what you're talking about? I said, yeah. He said, some big chickens out there, some little chickens. He was talking about Huns and Sharptails. He said, nobody hunts them.
Big chickens and little chickens.
He said, have at it. He said, lots of luck.
You had lots of luck. When you first started, did you have goals to hunt every day of the season, or did you have goals to raise as many Brittany's and breed as Brittany's as you could, or did those things develop over time?
Yeah, I think I had an agenda. I think I got.
That's good.
I think when I started, my first couple of years of hunting hunts, I never thought I would basically really develop a real desire to hunt them, and because back then I used to, when the pheasant season, I would hunt pheasants too. But over the years, I didn't want to hunt pheasants anymore, and I loved to run the dogs on sage grouse. And when I was first here, sage grouse were everywhere.
Oh yeah,
and we would shoot a few. We call them prairie bombers, and that's what they were. They were wonderful birds, and in sharptails back then, when I first started hunting in, there basically was not as many sharptails.
Yeah.
I think sharptails have actually over the years of the population has expanded.
Yeah. Well, it strikes me that we're talking about Huns and we're not really explaining for folks that have never hunted them or seen them. Just take folks through from an ecologist or biologist standpoint, like take people through what a Hun is, where it lives, kind of give people the rundown of that bird, because they're an interesting bird, even if they are a little chicken.
A lot of people know about bobwhite quail.
Yes.
And basically, I always kind of thought of them as nothing but big bobwhite quail that had their range about 5 times bigger or more than bobwhites.
Yeah.
So the first thing I wanted to do, learn their habits and habitat, which is very important. Habits came first, habitat came second. And to learn that, you didn't get that out of a book because nobody had written about them, basically. So I had to go out and be a field biologist and learn. One thing I did was I kept a diary, kept a log, marked them down, marked every covey I ever found after a few years of hunting them and later on, and marked the coveys, named the coveys.
Or really?
And I named that in my book. In the article I just wrote, I still call them the same name. It's called the burnt tree covey. I've hunted the burnt tree covey for almost 40 years.
Wow.
And I name them. I mean, so any time I find a new covey of Huns on a particular location, I would always look around and make a note, a piece of landmark that would associate with that covey.
Oh.
Like the waterfall covey, and just named a few of them, learned those coveys of where they were. I would go back and then figure out their range. And there was one time, most of the times when you find a covey, I used to pursue them. I mean, you have to be a real foot soldier to hunt Huns.
Yeah, you do.
And most of the times I would get a flush, I'd mark them best I could, And you always want to watch the last bird or the sleeper, which I call the last. If a cubby gets up and a single gets up later, watch that bird, because just like a kid in the gymnasium, the slowest kid's always going to cut the corners. Okay, it's the same way with a hun.
Yeah, I was a corner cutter as a kid.
Okay,
So I know what you mean.
What he would do is he'd watch the cubby, and then he'd cut the corner, and you knew exactly where they were going to make hooked or right or left. So then I got so the point that I could basically pursue a single covey of huns and jump them 4 or 5 times. And there was one time, I have this in my journal. There was one time I had my dogs point and flushed a covey, the same covey, 11 jumps.
Wow.
Took me 3 hours and never cut a feather.
Really?
Never cut a feather. Never got close enough to
You
him.
got to name that covey. That's an important covey to name.
I do that. I do that.
How do you stick with a covey like that over 40 years? Over 40 years, the landscape changes, the habitat, the landowners, all these things change, and you're still, with that same covey of huns over 40 years?
That location of cubbies pretty much. In fact, it's interesting. One of my marked cubbies I know, and I get a point. I know where they're going to fly before they do. I know the direction. And if I'm younger, if I'm with another hunter, I could always make myself get in a position that I had the advantage.
Yeah. You look over there. My dad used to do that to me growing up. Look over there, and the big buck walks out over here. I'm like, oh.
And huns are runners too, and people. Well, so are sharptail, but all game birds are. So are blue grouse, by the way.
Yeah,
Very much so.
I got a video of a blue grouse on Sunday. That just.
So when you tell me, and Bob White quail are too, and
yeah.
So and huns are just like sharptails and sage grouse, prairie game birds. All stay together and kind of run with a pattern. But if you keep pursuing them and they keep running and the dogs point and break, you have to. You can't. If you have a dog steady to wing and shot, your dog's going to be a half mile and back you before it breaks. So you develop dogs that point and break. And believe it or not, if you especially later on in the year when the birds really get smart and learn how to avoid you, when you're pursuing a covey of huns, eventually they will start to peel off and try to get around and back you. They'll try to get downwind of the dogs.
That's just like a smart elk or something like that.
I don't think people realize that, but I've seen that happen with sage grouse. Do it all the time. They'll get a bunch of 20, 30 sage grouse years ago. Pretty soon, you're walking. When you get to the end, one gets up.
And they just have learned and been conditioned to.
Kind of, where are the rest of them gone? They're all kind of peeling off and going around and back here. It's interesting.
Yeah. For anyone that might look at hun hunting or upland hunting in general and think there's no intricacies or nuances, or hey, the dog just flushes a bird and you shoot it, this conversation should dissuade you of that idea. There are nuances to bird hunting. There are nuances to understanding each bird, each piece of habitat, and what your writings teach are those little idiosyncrasies, the little things that you have to know to be good at it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
There's another thing I've studied is that huns, basically, a covey of huns will usually nest in a certain area, that particular covey. And I always kind of think of that as sleeping blanket. So when they're really pushed, where they go is to where they think they have the most protection. So many times when I flush a covey of huns and they start to making more than one flush, they will usually go back to their roosting site.
Yeah.
They have basically, I call it just a big circle or a big oval and they're locked into that. Once they get to that end of that oval or circle, they're going to come back. That's why sometimes when you pursue them, all of a sudden they flush and they're coming back over your head. It's because they want to go back home.
Yeah.
I mean, they have, and that's called I named it a cruising range. And that cruising range, as the winter approaches, or fall continues, that particular range will expand a little bit if the food source runs out. But you can't really visualize it as a circle. You got to visualize it as kind of a I just kind of call it like an oval, but I know that this covey is only going to go that way so far,
And they're coming
and
back.
they're coming back
Yeah.
or over here or there. Yeah.
That makes sense. I think, starting to think about like how the dog works into the equation, how Brittany's. Let's go back to the first time you thought of having, we talked about this a little bit already, but the first time you thought of having a Brittany as a bird dog or a gun dog, however you would describe it. Like how you saw Brittany or experienced it and thought, that's the one. Because there's a lot of characteristics about Brittany's that they're kind of every man's dog. They're very relatable. They're hardworking. They're not, the Brittany breed didn't come from some aristocracy or anything like that. So there's a lot of characteristics that seem relatable.
Yeah, I guess the best way to explain that is why I have Brittany's is, number one, it goes back to my college years of Oberlin.
Yeah.
And knowing very little about dogs, I found that Brittany's back then were very easy to train and very biddable dogs.
They're very eager.
And they're good house dogs, and they're very eager. And if you think back, those were the days that the only tool that I had for training a dog was a whistle. There was no such thing as shock collars or horseback chasing him, etc. So basically, you had to train a dog on whistle. So when I first started, that's what we hunted with, and we did keep our dogs fairly tight. But as I learned on and on, and my Brittany's got more confidence, and I start breeding dogs to run bigger. Therefore, I had more confidence in them, and they responded very well. Another thing, when I first started, I took my Brittany's and bred them to be primarily white. And I like the orange and white better than the liver and white, even though I'm a little prejudiced probably towards orange and white. But a lot of orange and white Brittany's were mostly orange. But the reason I developed Brittany's and I selected them because of the amount of white is you could see them.
Yeah.
And now that's not a factor anymore because now we have all these electronic stuff that
You know exactly where they are. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not, like I say, I use beepers. I do not use a shock collar. I don't. I have shocked a dog once for chasing the deer or something like that, but I don't believe in that, and I don't have to. I train all of my bird dogs with a beeper.
Yeah. And you told me over 100 dogs that you've personally trained in your lifetime.
I've owned personally 100 and I think it's 64 or 63. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there, man, I'm sure.
But I've also, let me add something.
Yeah.
For the last 20 years, I've also had some pointers.
Wow.
And the reason I have pointers is actually kind of, I like pointers. And I've had some setters and I've had some German short hairs, just a few, just to try them out. But I still like my pointers and Brittany's. The reason I have pointers is when I really got well known after writing about bird dogs, and I would talk to them in my writing for magazines. So I talked about how big my Brittany's would run. And I had a lot of these guys with their English pointers would be reading the magazine and kind of having a good time laughing, saying, this guy doesn't know what big is. So they would call me and talk to me about big running dogs. So, and over the years, to make a short story, over the years, I had quite a few guys that come out with, they couldn't stand it. They had to show me that they had big running dogs and I didn't. Well, it so happened when I got out here, they found out my dogs ran as big as theirs. And then they become very interested in the Brittany's. And so it just so happened, there's at least 5 or 6 guys that had really good pointers that say, Ben, I'm going to give you a pointer just to show you. And I'd say, fine, I'll take. So basically, I used to get a lot of pointers, and they were no different, basically.
You'd take them if they're going to give them.
Even some of now my pointer men have some of my Brittany's.
You've never been, I've never been around a Brittany that I didn't enjoy. Like, I've never been around, never hunted. I've hunted over some Brittany's and other dogs. I've never been around that breed and gain some energy from hunting with them and being around them. Like, they're just gregarious dogs.
People call me about dogs, and I don't, setter guys, and I call them setter guys.
Setter guys.
Setter guys are the guys that only think there's only one bird dog in the world. Okay, okay, and we have lots of laughs about when I talk to the guys. I've had 4 wonderful setters, and I trained them and basically I think they gave them away, most of them. And I've had some now, quote, French Brittany's. As far as I'm concerned, they're all Brittany's.
Oh, yeah.
But I've had 4 or 5 French Brittany's there.
We got to cover that. You had a little spat with the American Kennel Club way back in the day. You're telling me.
Yeah. And so basically, anyway, my advice to guys first starting bird hunting and know nothing about dogs, I think Brittany's, and probably French Brittany's too, I would add that. I think Brittany's probably are one of the easier dogs to train for the average guy.
Yeah.
In fact, the only thing you really got to do to Brittany is train him to come. And
that sounds like a dog that that seems to be my first.
The rest. In fact, it was interesting. I only my book Bird Dog. Mm-hmm. In fact, I just called my publisher, and they don't have any left. That book sold very quickly. When my publisher asked me, this is quite a few years ago, he asked me, Ben, he said, why don't you write a training book on dogs, on training dogs? I said, really, I said, Tom, I said, I load them up and take them out. And I said, if I wrote a book about training bird dogs, there'd have to be a lot of fluff in that. He said, because I really don't know what to say. And anyway, I got into writing it, and I call it the instinctive training method. And basically is just get out and do the dog. And the most important thing is teach the dog to come.
Yeah.
And nowadays having electronics and so forth is a lot easier. But
do you have 160 some odd dogs that you've bred and spent a lot of time hunting over and around over the years? You told me about McGillicuddy, which is a dog that you have some stories with. We know about Winston. You've written about a good bit. Is one of those dogs like one that you always kind of think back on, or you just kind of take people through the relationship because you committed so much time?
Well, I had the 2 females. I had my 2 first females I brought west, was Gina and Lola. And I didn't get Brigida, but I Gina, Lola, Brigida. I called them Gina and Lola. One was an orange and white, one was a liver and white. I got them from my kennels and from Oberlin Kennels, 2 very good females. And when I moved west, I wanted to get a male to start raising dogs. So I called Walter, and after 3 years, I got a dog I named Mike, because when I was a kid, I had Mike the dog. So being an artist also, so I like the name Michelangelo, which is, I call it short for Mike. Okay. So anyway, I named my kennels Williams Pride Kennels.
Right.
And Mike was my first male. And so I found out from a guy in Texas by the name of Jim Lebrick. I got his name from Delmar Smith. He's pretty well known at the Burro War. And he advised me to get a dog from Jim Lebrick. And well, over the years, I think I got 9 or 10 dogs from Jim. But I wanted to take the bloodline I had in Illinois, and he was a field trial judge, and he ran Brittany's off a horseback. So I wanted to develop bigger ranging dogs. So I got the female side from him, and I took my male side, and that was my starting of my bloodlines. So basically, that's how I start working to get big and running dogs.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you another little story, which was nice. So the reason I called him, you asked me, the reason I called him McGillicuddy and changed his name is that I had a friend over in Bozeman. This was in the 60s, that some guy had this big Brittany, and he let the dog out in the morning, and Bozeman was a small town back then, about the size of Livingston. And the dog would go out and run the city and get in street fights. He was a big dog. He'd get in fights, and he about every other day he'd be in the dog pound. And the guy that owned him, his bill at the dog pound got more than his rent. So he decided to get rid of it. Okay.
That's like having a dog's like having a kid. Same.
Yeah. So anyway,
running the mean streets.
He gave it to the vet, and he said, "I'm not paying the bill, so they're going to put the dog down." So the vet knew I had Brittany, and he called me. He said, "Benny," he said, "I had this big raw boned Brittany," and he said, "Would you like to have him?" And I said, and he told me the story. He said, he's a street fighter. I don't know if he can hunt or not. The guy claimed he took him pheasant hunting. He's not trained. So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take him for a month, and I'll see if he works out. So when Mike got here, his name was Mike. I had 2 Mikes.
Oh, you can't.
Okay, you can't have 2 Mikes. So my friend Charlie Waterman, he used to hunt with me. He was an outdoor rider. Charlie Waterman came over to see my new Mike, and he looked at Mike Michelangelo, and he said, "You know, Ben, he's always kind of looked like a McGillicuddy to me." I said, "Well, let's call him McGillicuddy." And he looked at Mike. He said, "Look at that big guy." He said, "Let's just call him Iron Mike." So that's how they got their name.
And these are some of the first Brittany's ever to run
when
these
I
valleys.
had Iron Mike, he had a very bad first week with me, okay? Because I sat down Iron Mike and said, being a school teacher, I said, guess who's boss, Iron Mike? Okay, you're looking at him. Okay, but believe it or not, I never bred him. He had never hunted Huns before, and he ran big. And when he pointed, you could sit down and have lunch, and he wouldn't move. So I ran him in big wheat fields, and he'd take like a half mile long. So you'd see Mike going down. He'd go right down the middle of the wheat field, all the way down. And
Iron Mike.
if he locked up, you got him. You go down one wheat field, and you go down the other wheat field. You just covered country. Unbelievable.
Describe, like, when you say, when you're looking at a dog that's on a perfect point, what's that look like? Like, what's that dog? What's his posture? Like, explain the perfect point to people.
Well, the idea of Brittany's, the idea of posture in America, I guess the idea is that you want a high tail, strung out, straight, and so forth. I've never been a big fan of having classic dogs point and so forth. In fact, I think it's kind of crazy because the English basically, all of their bloodlines, all of their dogs have low tails. They have a low tail for a reason. They don't want the bird to see the tail. But being in America, I think we got to kind of show off a little bit more. So we have a tendency to like our dogs with this beautiful stance and so forth, and so I've never been keen on the ideal posture for a dog.
You just want one that holds on point and knows when to.
As long as they're holding on point or we're walking and moving. Most important thing, I don't watch the dog's posture. I watch the dog's eyes. Those eyes tell me what's going on. In fact, I even wrote about. I had a dog. Clyde. Clyde was a piece of work. Okay. In fact, when he pointed, he looked like he was waiting for a bus. Okay. He was kind of, okay. But he was good. It was good. And when like you
nonchalant,
say,
though.
And he said, when he pointed, he said, "Hey, Ben, over here, got him." He go like this, look around. Okay.
I love it. Old Clyde.
So,
but you said, like, all these dogs have different personalities. You spend so much time. I mean, you spend time around them from when they're puppies. You are basically selecting them for service into this life. They energetically go forward and are partners with you.
Yeah, the important thing about bird dogs, I think, is it's I coach basketball. I coach football a little bit. You gotta, you want to win, but you also got to have fun. And I don't go out there and yell at my dogs and jump up and down and get mad or grab them and make them do this. That's not my agenda. My agenda is we're going to have a good time. And if they foul up or something, if they break a point or something, I don't jump at them and yell at them and grab them and make them point again and scream and holler at them. And, I've seen guys blow their whistle and jump in the air and point like this. I mean, that's crazy, I kind of think about my kids in basketball. There's 5 kids on the court and I'm in the bench, They got to do it. Same thing with 4 bird dogs down. They got to do it.
Guiding them.
Yeah.
So they got to do it. In terms of the relationships, like I said, you're selecting, basically selecting these animals and they're with you so long. And then at some point they're gone and there's a new puppy to train. Like, describe that relationship where you've been through 164 dogs. Some, they die and you get a new puppy and you kind of cycle through different animals. Describe, whether it's one particular dog or just the feeling of kind of that process of watching them come to peak and then die and then replace.
I guess I put it this way is that the reason I've had a lot of dogs because I like to see the young dogs develop into mature dogs.
Yeah.
And there are people say that an older dog will teach a young dog how to hunt. That's not true. The only thing an older dog will do to a young dog is give him some encouragement to run out. But they gotta learn to hunt. Every dog is a little different, just like every basketball player I had. Some of them just have that instinct to know when to move and when to go in for that shot. A dog's the same way, basically. I have dogs know exactly the cover to hunt and not the cover to hunt. And I watch some people's dogs, and they're out there hunting, and they shouldn't be hunting there at all. They should be hunting where the birds are.
Yeah.
That's a smart dog. Dogs, there's different levels of smartness in a dog. Some dogs you can just know exactly how to hunt.
Yeah.
And I've had some of my pointers, I've had dogs that just basically get out of the truck and just, like an arrow, just go out exactly. And another thing is once you hunt a dog in the same places over and over again throughout the year, you'll be amazed that those dogs know where those coveys where I do.
I remember. I was struck. We were hunting with Morgan Mason's dog and another colleague of ours, Joe Ferranato. We were hunting up for blue grouse and just hunting over those dogs. They're office dogs. They come around the meat eater office. They're hanging out. We see them every day.
That's wonderful.
We love them, man. They're part of our family. And then to watch, it's kind of like having somebody you're around every day and then watching them go to work, hanging out with Michael Jordan all day and then watching them shoot hoops.
Yeah.
It's like just watching them. They're young dogs, but they're learning. We shot a couple of grouse over them to watch them do their thing. Is there's some magic to it, man. Like just that relationship.
I think basically, I guess, I don't know. I think there's probably more lousy hunters than there are lousy dogs. Okay.
That's a T-shirt. That's an Upland T-shirt. I've heard one. You're right about that. Is there
Well, the important thing about running dogs and so forth is you really want them to have fun also.
Yeah.
That's important. And that's I contribute a lot of my knowledge to working with dogs also with coaching. I really do. It's almost kind of the same thing. As you can only do so much with a basketball player, but he's got to do the rest.
Yeah.
And you got to give him some room to develop. And so that's one reason why some of my dogs mature a little bit. They take a little longer to mature. I found my English pointers basically don't really start to mature, really get into start good bird dogs at about 3 years.
Yeah.
And Brittany's, a lot of time, a good Brittany will start his first year.
Really?
Brittany's have the longevity. The nice thing about Brittany's, most of them live longer than most pointing dogs. They'll live about 14, 15 years, and they'll hunt till they're 14.
Uh-huh. What's the longest you had a dog stay with you hunting? How many years?
15 years.
15.
I got an old dog out there right now that I had one that was, McGillicuddy lived till 14.
Yeah, we got to close up McGillicuddy's story. So he lived till 14.
And he finally come blind. But he would walk I'd take him out hunting, and he could see him follow his nose, even though he couldn't see very well, but he still would go out with me.
Like the rest of us, we still want to go until we just can't go anymore.
Yeah.
When a dog like McGillicuddy finally, you finally put him down, or you finally lose him. I mean, you have a lot of rich memories with that dog. What's that like? What was it like to watch him, go down, as it were?
Putting a dog down is a very sad affair with me. I mean, it's I don't handle that very well. Yeah. I take him to the vet. We put him down, but it's not a. And best thing I try to do is go back and think about all the good times we had with him and so forth. And I got a female right now that she's Mary. That's just an absolute phenomenal dog, and
not much longer.
No, she can't anymore. Her legs are bad. She can't walk.
Yeah, that's got to be a tough part of doing what you do.
That's the toughest part, is having all these dogs, is that, and they don't live very long. 15 years is not very long. As a good example, last year I lost 4 of my best dogs. 4 in 1 year. 3 pointers and Mary. Mary did, and the pointers died. One had cancer, one died of crusted wheatgrass in his lungs, and the other one, I don't know why it died, but they were I think they were 12 and 13.
Yeah.
Just so happened to 3 of them, that 4 dogs. And I basically am down on, for really, really outstanding dogs. Now I only have probably 3. And they don't compare. Well, I got another young little pointer that's going to be good. Yeah. But none of these dogs compare with McGillicuddy or with Winston.
Yeah, I mean, has how you see those deaths changed over the years? I mean, you've watched all these dogs come and go. Now you're 87. Have your view of those deaths changed, or is it still as hard as it ever was each time?
I don't quite understand the question.
How do when you're a younger hunter, say, when you're first, when McGillicuddy's around, when you're first getting these dogs and you're learning with them, and now you've been doing it for 6 decades. And has anything changed with you when you lose a dog or when you develop that relationship, or are you still
I don't think so.
No,
I don't. It's not any easier. Yeah. No. No, they're just part of my life, Another thing you haven't maybe mentioned is that since Huns come from England originally, or they're from Hungary and Saskatchewan, or the steppe country of Europe, and I become very interested in Huns. So in return, I become very interested in Hun dogs, basically Brittany's from France, and pointers. And so there's basically one thing that was missing, and that is British guns. Okay, which I've had a lot.
You can't have this conversation without talking about those.
What's that?
Can't have this conversation without talk about those.
You can see.
Yeah, I see. I see. What? So of the shotguns that you've used over the years, what's the crown jewel? What's the shotgun that you have put the most rounds through? And what's the shotgun you've pointed at the most Huns?
What gun I killed the most Huns?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's an easy question. That's a very easy question. In 1963, when I worked for Dan Bailey's fly shop in the summer, I bought a Belgian Browning.
Ooh.
A Belgian Browning. Back then, the Belgian Browning. Before that, I had a Model 37 Ithaca, and I had a
those Ithaca shotguns.
I had a
everyone
Browning
had an
A5 with a pickle on the end. That was a compensator. You remember the poly jokes? Okay.
There's the Ithaca shot. My dad had an Ithaca growing up. I think everybody that had a shotgun had an Ithaca shotgun. During
I
those
had a whole
decades.
set of them. I loved Ithacas. But anyway, when I got this, I got a 20 gauge Belgian Browning. I'm not going to tell you how many Huns I shot with that gun because they'd probably put me in jail. Okay. I shot that gun for almost 35 years.
Wow.
I practically shot it out. I just one of the reasons I can honestly say is that story. I had remember the A5, the Browning,
Browning A5,
the
original.
automatics.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
When I was in my college days pheasant hunting, I bought one of those. I think I scraped up enough. No, I think it cost me $75, and that was. And I took it to. When I moved from Illinois, I went to Washington, taught for a couple of years, and hunted Huns, but mostly I hunted chuckers and quail. And I had so I was invited out to a farm in northern Washington up behind a place called Omak. And I was going with a guy hunting deer, a friend of mine, one of my teaching friends, and I was going to hunt birds. He's hunting deer and so forth. In fact, that's where I saw my first sage grouse. So anyway, I was very excited about it. So we stayed overnight at the farmhouse and talked to the rancher, and he said, I told him I would like to have some quail. Hunt quail. He said, oh, I got all kinds of quail. So he said, if you go down this road here and take a left and a right, and he said, there's a big bunch of choke cherries, and he said, just drive up there and you'll see a bunch of quail, and they're always in there. So I drove up there and drove by the big, long choke cherry patch, and about 500 quail got up and flushed, okay? I had my two dogs with my two Brittany's. They flushed and lit on the hillside, all sagebrush. I'm not exaggerating, but I think every sagebrush had a quail in it. Okay. So being excited, I go over there with my A5, take 25, one box. I took a whole box of shells, 25 shells, went over there. Dogs made wonderful points. I missed 25 shots in a row. Okay. Never cut
Sounds
a
like
feather.
me. That's impressive.
Never cut a feather. Okay. Drove back, and driving back home, I said, I think I need another gun. Okay. This thing is too heavy.
Shooting blanks.
And I need something fast. Okay. So in the meantime, I got a hold of I had a Lefevre that I would use, which is a lovely little 20 gauge Lefevre. I should have brought that gun, but I thought the other one was going to work. So when I finally started hunting Huns here, the first thing I did was I wanted to get a Belgian Browning.
Yeah.
It was light, 20 gauge was fast.
Are you a 20 gauge guy all the way? 20, 28 gauge, or is it unsophisticated to
No.
shoot a 12 gauge?
I've had more 28 gauges than any care. I've had about 10, 28 gauges.
Really?
Now I'm into shooting English guns with 2-inch shells.
So,
I use nothing but 2-inch shells.
what size shot are you shooting out of those?
7.5, usually
7.5.
sevens.
So what do you got over there? You got a bunch of side by sides, a bunch of European side by sides.
Yeah, I got 4 Churchills,
Oh,
and
man.
I have a Mortimer, a little 20-inch gun. It's a 12 gauge. It weighs 5 pounds 1 ounce.
Easy to swing.
It's pretty fast.
Yeah, I bet it is.
I have a 20 gauge Churchill, 16 gauge Churchill, and I like 25-inch barrels. But I've had 5 or 6 Spanish guns, which are beautiful. Arrietas, Garby, AYA. I've had several Purdy's.
I was going to
I've
ask
had
you
a-
about Purdy's.
I've had 3
yeah.
Purdy's. I've had a Boss. I had a Henry Atkins. And now I'm kind of into Churchill's.
It's a fine
But
English gun.
I have an excuse why I have all these guns, and I
Those are good investments, Ben. That's what I tell my wife.
yeah, I have the same excuse, which is, which is probably not true, but
Yeah, well,
Okay,
let's not
so-
let that out of the
so
bag.
anyway.
We need to keep.
but anyway, another reason I actually bought and purchased so many different guns. They're good prices and buy them is because I like to write about them.
Yeah.
And the only way you can write about a gun is to have the gun. That's a better excuse. Okay.
Wait, just repeat that for the audience.
Okay.
That is something to remember. The only way
That's right.
that you can write about a gun is to have one.
So later on, I'll show you those guns.
Please,
if
before
you'd
we
like.
leave, I want to get my hands on those. I can't let you go. I can't let this interview go by without talking to you about writing, like your philosophies on writing, how you craft a story. Do you have any like just rules that you live by for writing when you sit down to write something? Because I'm a writer. A lot of people that listen to this are writers. You know, do you have any advice for everybody about the craft of writing?
That's I was a photographer long before I was a writer. And some of my friends like that Point Out Journal, Steve Smith and several guys, Petrie, Tom McGuane, and a lot of those guys said, Ben, you ought to write this stuff down. And being in the field basically of engineering and my background of, being in biology and architecture and shop and writing is something I'm more mechanical basically. And I think of my college classes I skipped, most of them were English. Okay. So my writing came very hard to me when I started. But when I finally started, I really got into it. I can honestly say I worked extremely hard at writing. It's not an easy thing to do. I'm very slow at it. I think I'm, after now 35 years of writing, I'm certainly a lot better and more creative. But
I find it to be an excruciating process. It's painful to write. Everything I write is painful.
I agree. But I haven't written anything in the last couple of weeks, which kind of bad. The one thing I do have is good discipline. I think you got to have good discipline to be a writer. So I do. I usually write in the afternoon, or I write from about like maybe 1 o'clock until 4 o'clock or so.
Yeah.
And if I'm really jammed for time, I'll write in the morning sometime. But there are times when I was writing a book, I'd write for 6-7 hours. I rewrite a lot. I think all writers do that.
Yeah, you write it and then hate it and then write it. That's part of the excruciating nature of the whole affair. It's just like it's like it's an exercise in
and
hatred.
I can also read. I read all kinds of books. I don't watch television. I read. You can see my library. I read.
I'm going to come over here and ask you to borrow books and shotguns.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So I think writing is hard, and like I said, but I like it. And I do. I like to write. I'll probably continue writing for quite some time. And when I first started writing, I'd write mostly hook and bullet stuff, in most stories. But it so happened in Cubby Rise, when they approached me, I my first couple of stories I write kind of hook and bullet stories, and finally, John, the owner and publisher of Cubby Rise, he said, Ben, he said, you've been doing this so long. He said, we want to hear you about stories. And I said, I have stories. I mean, and I can write about stories. I mean, I wrote
more stories than
I wrote about Clyde, as a good example, going to Mongolia. I took Clyde to Mongolia twice, and he was a little prejudiced. He didn't like the Mongolians. He wouldn't look at them. And I had a little talk with him. Why, I don't
Clyde.
know.
Get it together.
Yeah. Yeah, Clyde was a piece of work. He was one of my hunting dogs. His idea of hunting was to go out hunting, looked like he's real good, and if the first time he smelled a bunny, he would never chase the bunny because he wasn't allowed to. So then we'd walk maybe 100 yards or so, and all of a sudden Clyde would be lost. He'd be gone. And Clyde always managed to double back. Okay.
Check
and I
things
caught him
out.
one time up in a high. I'd look, and he doubled back and went bunny hunting. So
Bird dog ADD.
So Clyde and I had a few conversations about that. But
he heard that
laughed.
whistle more than once, I bet.
He didn't care. He just said, oh, well, what the heck. He had a good attitude.
Let me ask you about, I think it would be a nice way to close our chat here, to ask you about the upland hunting culture, kind of what it is. Because you've seen, especially in this valley, but I think you, being in the industry and having written so much and being connected to Covey Rise, which is and Modern Huntsman, which are more modern publications, and some of the other publications you mentioned have been around for decades. I would love to just hear your thoughts on how upland culture has changed and grown over those 50 years, 60 years.
I think I certainly think that I contributed a lot to hunting Western game birds.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, when I first started hunting, it was unheard of. I think Charlie Waterman was probably the first one when he came out here. I knew him quite well, and I admired the man very much so. And he was a very good bird hunter. He was a big game hunter first, but when he met me, he got very interested in bird hunting. I kind of was the guy that really got him started, even though he went on. And I think his writing, had a lot to develop in bird hunting. And I think after the Second World War, I think there's a lot of people especially quail hunters in the South, took up that, pheasant hunters in the Midwest, and it became fairly popular. Yeah. And then I would say for hunting in the West, I probably put bird hunting on the map. And I'm not trying to take credit for it, but I'm saying that
no need, because it's a fact.
Charlie I was one very instrumental, and Charlie did it first with his dog. I was very instrumental when taking a lot of my bird dogs and hunting every bird in North America.
Well, I think that,
and now guys do it all the time.
I know, and especially in the West too. And I think when I moved here, I was telling you before we hit record that I've been here for 10 months or some number. And when you move here, you're fantasizing about elk and mule deer and all these things that are like unique to the West. But when I got here, I started seeing rough grouse, blue grouse, sage grouse, pheasants, like huns, all these birds, and I'm thinking, it's kind of not fair because the West has this treasure trove of big game species, but also this, like, you can be in the most, we were hunting the other day, Morgan, Joe, and I, and this is the most beautiful canyon you can imagine.
Yeah.
To which I could see my house, and we're able to flush and shoot the beautiful blue grouse. It's just like, it's almost unfair.
Blue grouse. I mean, there's my book, Western Wings, or my revised Book of Western Wings as I added more birds that, blue grouse are a fun bird to hunt. And people don't realize that if you read my book and study their habits, they're the only game bird that nests low and move up. All the other birds move down. So basically, September 1st, you can hunt them in the sagebrush if you know where they are. I mean, like I say, there are places that I go, and then the males will go high, but then by what's around the 15th, 16th right now. Yeah. So those young broods right now, usually the females go. The males are up there. The females go first, and then the broods go up. So where you hunted them, if you hunted real low last week or when you were hunting them, the chances are you might not find them there. They're going to be moving up.
Yeah, we were up pretty high, and they were up there. I was elk hunting a couple of days ago, and they were just walking on the road. There was 5 blue grouse just walking on the road.
Yeah,
everything pretty high, 8,000, 9,000 feet.
There are a lot of times that I hunt. There's 3 or 4 places I used to hunt here. I would shoot as many rough grouse as I would blue grouse, all the same spot.
Yeah. I think we've been going for a while here now. Is there a way, before we go, that you could explain to people how all of this, upland hunting, shotguns, dogs, breeding, all the things we've talked about has enriched your life and kind of made it better? Like, is there a way to articulate that to somebody that's maybe never done it before, since you've been doing it for longer than just about anyone?
Well, I think right off, I think the nice thing about running dogs and hunting hard in hunts and hunting in general. I don't big game hunt. I used to do it a little bit, but I don't care. But I think bird hunting is very physical if you do it, especially hunts and western game birds. Very physical, and I think it's a very good way to keep physically fit. And I think my longevity has something to do with my bird hunting.
And you're 87 now?
I'm 87.
87. Mm-hmm. And you're still, how many days a year do you think you hunt now?
Oh, all depends on the weather right now, but I hope to get out at least 40 or 30 or 40, maybe more.
Anybody listening to this that say they don't have energy or time to go and do the thing they love, you're still doing it at 87.
I hunted 1 year, a couple of years I hunted and fished 250 days. And I did that probably off and on for almost 10 years. And the year I retired from teaching, I'd hunt 100 days here, and then I'd go hunt Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, and then Oklahoma and New Mexico. And then I'd start hunting September 1st, and I'd wind up February 15th. So September, October, November, December, January, February.
Well, I'm a young man, but I've already got retirement plans, and they look a lot like that. I could pick an animal. I see.
How old are you now?
33.
33.
So I would have.
Yeah, I used to, when I was 32, I could take off on a Saturday and hunt hunts, and I could go about 25 miles.
There's a lot of elk hunters that don't go 25 miles. Many that don't do it.
That's how I learned to hunt hunts. I mean, I could.
That's work. That's in this country. That's a lot of work.
65, 7, I could slow down. I only go about 12, maybe 14. But now
Well, we'll end it. But I'm looking at your bookcase here, and I'll tell you that my favorite book, and I see you have one up there, is Tom Kelly's 10th Legion.
It's one of my favorites.
Is that your favorite? I just podcasted with Tom a couple of months ago.
Oh, you did? I love Tom's book. In fact,
he's in Bethesda. He's getting up there in age himself, but he's still as sharp as a tack, man. He's a legend.
It's my favorite book. There's a couple other different ones. Favorite is the Sand County Almanac is my favorite.
That's another. Those are
Tom Kelly's book. Probably really inspired me to hunt. I hunted turkeys. the nice thing about turkey hunting in the spring is you couldn't hunt any other game bird.
Yeah, that's your off time.
So, and I used to hunt it with dogs.
Yeah.
And so, and I just, I hope Tom could hear this, because every year before I went turkey hunting, I had to read his book.
Me too.
It was,
Me too.
It was more important than even taking my shotgun, I think, to read his book.
I can't tell you how much I agree with that. When I met with him in June, he's still similar. Wants to go turkey hunting every year. He's not in the best shape for walking around, but he still has it. And
the reason I used to be a turkey hunting nut, and I haven't done. I mean, there was times that I think the best day I had in eastern Montana, I called 8 gobblers in one day and shoot them away. Just called them in to have fun. And I built my own turkey calls.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And I've had all kinds of, I built a lot of wooden turkey calls, but scratch calls.
Wow. Is there another book, Sand County Almanacs 1, we have a shirt for this podcast that just has an illustration of Aldo Leopold on it, it says Aldo freaking Leopold on it, because I think that book shaped the way I think about the outside world. Like, it just did. And then
the Sand County
Almanac did.
One of my favorites.
And then 10th Legion, just not only turkey hunting, but just hunters, how we are, our kind of weird the weird things that we do. Is there a book up there that you, other than those two, that you really think of as kind of changed your way of being outside? Because you got to
well, there's a couple of them. I can't think of the name. There's a book that has nothing to do with hunting that I like, but I think a hunter would like it. It's by Gavin. He was a poet. He's a poet, and and it's called The Meadow. Have you ever read The Meadow?
I have not.
It's about 360 acres in a life living in Wyoming, Colorado border. It's a wonderful book.
I'll have to pick it up.
It's nothing to do with hunting, but it's very close to my philosophy of living in the West.
Oh.
Other hunting books.
There's so many up here. You've got.
I liked.
I don't even see that bookshelf over there. I don't even think about that.
Oh golly.
Oh gosh. Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna come over here and maybe I could check them out, like the library.
I got those books. I like his books. Grab that. See that red one on the right slide? Go to the left a little bit farther. Right there. Grab that. That's Nash Buckingham.
Nash Buckingham. That is Ole Miss.
Yeah, I got the whole series of Nash.
Best.
I love his books too.
Like I said, when I think of these writers like yourself, that kind of like typify or just embody like a microculture within hunting. You got Nash Buckingham, Ruark, you have yourself, you have Tom
Ruark,
Kelly.
I liked writing. I think,
so many good ones. And that's
and I'm missing some right now. I just can't think about what I.
Well, we'll ask you to write an article for themeateater.com on your favorite books. How about that?
Yeah.
Now we can point everybody that direction.
There's some I like. Oh, there's all kinds of books I really.
Yeah, The Man and the Boy is a Ruark book that everybody
wonderful.
should read.
Wonderful.
Everybody should read that for sure.
I wrote, as a good example, my dog Winston.
Yeah.
I wrote that book also for kids. My daughter teaches 5th grade, and she has her kids read that book.
Yeah, it's a great piece.
And it's a nice, simple little. It's nice story about a dog hunting all the birds,
doing it,
and how he lived a short life. And it was a celebration. That wasn't, it wasn't a memorial book or anything. It was just something.
Celebration of life, and
Yeah,
it seems like
yeah.
That being as
And-
hard as it is, that's the only way to approach it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we'll come back. We'll come back sometime and do a book review with you.
I like Tom McGuane's stuff.
Oh, McGuane, yeah.
Fishing. Tom's a good friend of mine. I gave
just
him.
recorded a podcast with Tom recently.
I have a
Meat Eater podcast.
good story about loaning him a bird dog, Abby. I wrote about it. And he wrote about it, and I never got it back.
Oh, you didn't?
Oh, I loaned him, and I just funny said, "Tom, it's your dog." He wrote the story about Abby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
In
that's
fact, I wrote a
He's a
story. He
fantastic
called me. I
writer.
wrote a part of the story, but I couldn't have given it to a better person than Tom.
Montana seems to be a good fuel for writers. McGuane, yourself, and others. Come here, and there's something about it that fuels good writing.
Well, I think I like Jim Harrison was a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Russell Chatham did a lot of good writing.
Yeah.
When you talk about fishing sometime, if you ever want to talk about me fishing and so forth, with the idea of some of my best fishing books, I like Haig Brown.
Mm.
Have you read Haig Brown stuff?
I have.
Yeah, I'm a steelhead fisherman too. I love steelhead fishing. So
Yeah, we have a whole nother podcast with you about your fishing years and
Yeah.
trout unlimited days and things like that. But
like I said, I just don't. I got. There's another book that's nothing to do with hunting, Prairie Earth.
mm-hmm.
Have you read that?
I have not. But like I
Yeah.
said, I'm going to come here and check some out for you.
That's-
Oh, Prairie. Yeah,
That's
okay.
Lee Heast Moon. He wrote Blue Highways. And I like Prairie Earth is because it's about Kansas and about the country I like. It's not associated with bird hunting at all, but it's
Oh, there you go. The Great Duck Misunderstanding. That's
it's wonderful
that's a
written.
good tale.
I'm just a reader. I read all of Hemingway's stuff. I read that over and over again, and
You have Round River up there by Aldo.
right there,
That's a good one.
yeah.
I could read those forever. Well, it's been an honor to sit here and have a conversation with you, Ben. I appreciate you taking the time, number one, but also just number two, your writing, your work, your passion for gun dogs that extends over twice as long as I've been on the earth, I think is inspiring to me and hopefully inspiring to everybody listening to this. And so thank you very much for all you've done.
Yep,
And maybe we'll get out and go chase some huns one of these days.
absolutely.
I guess I grew up on an older road. A pedal to the metal, always did what I was told. Till I found out that my brand
That's it. That's all. Episode 80 in the books. Our Upland episode. We don't do any Upland episodes. There's not a whole lot of Upland content floating around in our Meat Eater world. So it's nice to talk to Ben O. Williams. Thank you so much, Ben, for having us in your home. Thanks to Morgan Mason, Joe Fernato. Thanks to Mango for just being Mango.
Big shouts to Mango.
Big shouts.
Sweet dog.
Sweet Mango. We love you, Mango. Even though I've never met you. I can't wait. Will you ever bring Mango in the office?
My wife really wants me to, because I tell her about the other office dogs
Yeah.
and how generally well behaved they are
Yeah.
for how many we have running around
It's a
here.
pack of dogs. around
Yeah,
here,
and
man.
she says you should expose her to more dogs.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're right, but that would mean exposing her to more dogs.
Yeah.
And
me.
She's just exactly.
You don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you're crazy.
I'm out there, man. I'm out there. All right. Well, thanks to Mango. We'll hopefully see you in the office real soon.
Yeah.
And let me just remind everybody before we go, not so sharp moments. We already talked about this in the opening of the show, but we need your not so sharp moments. We need you to write in to thc@themeateater.com and tell us sometimes you might have fumbled in the field. It's important. We're going to have lighthearted discussions about these moments, bring to light failure. People on social media are always saying all you see is success. Well, not here at THC. Here at the Hunting Collective, We're all about failure.
Some people call it the failure podcast.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
We read mean comments. We talk about not so sharp moments. So all those things. That's coming real soon. That segment's coming to this podcast very soon. So look out for it. Hopefully you can be a part of it by writing into thc@themeateater.com. Use your best prose. Dust off those writing chops and tell us a story. Is that good, Phil?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what people have to say. I'm sure there are many, many not so sharp moments out
I don't
there.
ask much of you guys other than to buy products and spend hours a week with me. I don't ask, other than that, I ask very little of you,
It's true.
right?
Yeah.
But now-
you give.
I'm a giver.
You give so much.
I give so
and
much.
You never ask. But
And I'm
now you're asking.
Yeah, now finally, I'm asking you to do something for real. And that's right into thc@themeateater.com. I would like to have hundreds of emails to sift through here. Thousands. Tens of thousands. Very serious about this.
Yeah.
And so, my plea is over. So we will see you next week. And we'll also see you at thc@themeateater.com. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jack Daniels. Oh, number 7. Tennessee whiskey got me drinking in heaven. And angels start to look good to me. They're gonna have to deport me to the fiery deeps. Oh, to the fiery deeps. Drinking in the fiery deeps. Oh, to the fiery deeps. Drinking in heaven.
Hey, I got something before we do anything else. I got something that I need to ask your help with. And that's Public Lands Day. I know it's Public Lands month of September, la-di-da, but there's a specific day, and that day is Saturday, September 28th, that First Light, our friends over at First Light, are trying to ramp up the conservation donation. So if you want to go to www, what's the WW stand for?
World Wide Web.
Oh, thanks, Phil. Thanks for that. If you want to go to worldwideweb.firstlight.com, they're going to tell you how when you get there to help them celebrate National Public Lands Day. And that's by they're going to match all the contributions made to their conservation partners via the First Light Roundup program. So now is the time to double your donation to the groups working hard to protect American wildlife and wild places, including TRCP, Teddy Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, the QDMA, Pheasants Forever, and more. So go to firstlight.com, check it out. You're going to get your donation doubled. They're going to be putting money into conservation. You're going to be putting money into conservation. And everyone will be happy. Wildlife and wild places will thank you for it. So go and do it if you don't mind.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.